5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. So out with 2019, and here comes 2020. I got that 2020 vision this year. It's going to be the year of clarity, right? So each year we're hopeful for the new possibilities that may come with it. And looking forward to 2020, it was no different. I spent my new year in Ghana, which was commemorating the 400th year anniversary of the transatlantic slave trade to the Americas in 1619. The Ghanaian government encouraged people of the African diaspora to visit the country and participate in the year of return, which included a host of cultural and historical events. It was the first time I had stepped foot on the continent of Africa. And my first thought when I arrived was just how familiar it felt. It felt like home, Aquaba. The markets reminded me of 125th Street in Harlem in the 90s, but way larger and way busier. The area was filled with vendors selling beautiful fabric, jewelry, artwork. The people looked like distant relatives from my native Haiti. Now, during my time in Ghana, I found myself reflecting on my family, my career, as I usually do around this time. But this particular year, there was an additional layer of reflection considering the gravity of events that led to this moment. Sankofa. Sankofa is a word from the Twi language of Ghana, which translates to go back and get it. It's a common theme used in the African diaspora, which speaks to the process of reflecting on the past in order to build a better future. It pretty much captures a central philosophy of mine. Sometimes I think I spend way too much time thinking of yesterday to prepare for tomorrow, sometimes at the expense of being present in the today. But I think a lot of that is born out of this principle of Sankofa. You see, I thought about the disruption of being taken from your home, your family, your country, and brought to a foreign land. I thought about being sold as chattel and being considered 3/5 of a human. I thought about Black people being killed by those sworn to protect and serve the community. But I've also thought about the idea of forging a path forward despite these atrocities. I thought about how the Black Lives Matter movement has created space for issues like police brutality and mass incarceration, which has now become a part of the national political discourse. If there's anyone who knows about disruption and finding a way forward, it would be the descendants of those African people who were brought here. You see, I went back to get these reminders of resilience, community, compassion, and preparation, and brought them back with me. Now, when I returned back from this reflective trip, I was ready to enact what I've learned, because one thing is for certain, life is full of disruptions, but our responses to them will subsequently pave a path to new beginnings. I'm also reminded of an ecological principle of secondary succession, which occurs when a biological community has been removed by a disruption like a flood or fire. There's significant loss of life and destruction, but over time, the community proves to be resilient and is eventually restored for like 2.0. This reminds me of Sankofa. I'm also reminded of the concept of immunity. At times, foreign invaders enter the body and disrupt its natural processes. The body has a mechanism for creating antibodies to fight off the invader. And if the invader returns, the body goes back and retrieves what is needed to move forward. This reminds me of Sankofa. Nature is full of these principles of going back and getting what it needs in order to move forward. Now, at the beginning of the new year, the world was hit with a major disruption. In January, the CDC confirmed the first case of the coronavirus flu in the US. And by March, a number of states instituted some form of lockdown or stay-at-home order. On March 16th, the New York City Department of Education, the largest public school system in the country, transitioned to a fully remote model. And just like that, over 1 million students were now learning online. Now, at the outset, it was clear that the school system was not prepared nor equipped to make this transition. Teachers had not been trained to deliver remote instruction. Many students did not have the proper resources to receive remote instruction. For many, including myself, this period was highly stressful and unnerving. I remember not being able to distinguish one day from the next. But although it was far from perfect, over time, I also began to witness a massive school system that is sometimes impeded by its own inertia, mobilizing to distribute thousands of devices to students across the city. Systems were being put in place to deliver something called asynchronous and synchronous instruction. I also began to witness something rather interesting. A few of the students that had been disengaged from school began to engage under this remote system. I'm thinking of Dawu, who's a student who would come to school once or twice a week and was now suddenly submitting assignments on Google Classroom and attending Google Meet sessions. The remote platform, at least for him, offered him a degree of flexibility that the traditional setting does not. Remote instruction eliminated the need for him to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, maybe eat breakfast or not. It eliminated the drudgery of taking the number 2 train at 7 o'clock in the morning to Evander. Dawu no longer had to wait in line for 30 minutes as he's being scanned through the metal detectors. He can now hop on a Google Meet session at 9 o'clock, probably have a bowl of cereal at his side. You see, in many respects, the school system continues to operate under this 20th century factory style model that some students like Dawu struggle with. And major disruptions like this tend to illuminate existing systemic flaws and inequities. Now, trust me, I don't mean to oversimplify this matter. There are many drawbacks to remote instruction. Students have struggled immensely and continue to struggle with the remote model and surely require in-person instruction. Teachers have struggled with the remote model, but some of the struggle may have to do with reimagining a different way of teaching and learning. Using traditional approaches to remote instruction is like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Remote instruction requires a reconsideration of many factors like pacing, the content delivery, and student engagement. And students and teachers are going to need to develop a new set of skills, which definitely takes time. Now, many of us are eager to get back to normal, and I get it because I'm also eager to get back for things to get back to normal. But remote instruction has been far from easy. But when you dig beneath the surface, there were many aspects of the school system and society for that matter that were part of the norm, but far from normal. There's some things that need to stay behind the pandemic and some things that we need to carry forward. We need to go back and take some of the things that we found. Let's continue with this emphasis on the social and emotional well-being of the student. In my mental health and wellness class, the students are quite candid and honest about their experiences and struggles throughout the pandemic. We talk about ways to reduce stress through mindfulness activities, yoga, dance, art. These conversations give me insight into what many of our students are going through and helps to inform my practice. I start all my Zoom and Google Meet sessions with some form of music, usually Afrobeat, so that everyone is a bit more relaxed. I do a lot more mood check-ins to get a pulse of how the students are feeling. They're simple things, but they've translated into more productive sessions and have forged community between us. These restorative practices need to be ingrained in our school system, just as the state exams are. Now, none of us have a crystal ball to see exactly when things will get back to normal. The development of the coronavirus vaccine has certainly provided hope that this return to normalcy is approaching. We're also nearing the end of 2020, which has provided some clarity for me. It's that time of the year again that I reflect on my life, my family, my career. I'm going back to the disruption of this pandemic and moving forward with all that I have gained, because this is Sankofa.